Hey guys, David Robinson here. Welcome to another episode of the Lead Sponsor Podcast. Excited about our episode today. I've got Steve Gesis with me today from Smartland Real Estate. So Steve started out in the corporate world and made a transition into single family investment property and property management back in 2008. And he built up a business that managed and operated and owned over 1,000 single family residents in Northeast Ohio. He and his partner Vadim ended up transitioning and actually selling that business a handful of years later in roughly 2015, and transitioned and started Smartland, which is focused on deep value add, heavy value add C-class assets in the in the Midwest, and then also have just recently started to focus on the Southeast in Florida. And we dive into his business, how his business is structured, how they've grown, what their focus is on, and how they lean into some technology aspects of their business and really try to focus on providing a product to tenants that really has an emphasis on some technology features that a lot of other operators aren't implementing at this point in time. And so I think you'll enjoy my conversation with Steve, how he's grown his business, what he's focused on today, and sort of his outlook on deep value add C-class deals, both today and moving forward over the next 6 to 12 months. So without further ado, Steve Gesis. Mr. Steve Gesis, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us.
Yeah, thanks, David. Really like being here and appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I've already given the listeners a bit of information about you, sort of your background and your business and what you guys focus on. But why don't we talk a little bit more in depth about what you were doing before you got into the real estate world, how you got into real estate, and how Smartland came to be.
Yeah, awesome. I love covering this component because, we live the true American dream at Smartland. And so we're so passionate about what we do every day. And so my background actually, I immigrated to the United States at the age of 5 from Odessa, Ukraine in 1990. And so, talk about a platform that really, as I said, resounds the American dream. This is it right here. And so we work passionately for our investors every day because we worked so hard to get to this moment. And my personal background, married, the father of 3 little boys so they take up a lot of our time between sports, travel, so forth and so on. My wonderful wife, Megan, she takes care of the household. She allots me a lot of time at work. But besides that, undergraduate from the Ohio State University, and especially, my background was in biology initially,
Mm.
and I thought that my warpath in life was going to be a dentist, and I pursued that for quite some time. Did all the necessary things. My mother really wanted a dentist. But certainly I went graduate degree from Cleveland State in business. And I was working at the Cleveland Clinic. My partner, David Deem, had already founded, at that time, it was Cleveland Property Management. And I had a keen eye for, looking into real estate. I was kind of doing that 8 to 5 in a suit job, was reading up about it, had a little bit of background in the past, doing a little bit of flips, with the family here and there over the years. And so I reached out to Vadim, and we kind of got talking, and we ventured off and spun off a little bit of more construction. Left my 8 to 5 job. We purchased that one home back in 2008 that my partner today purchased. Rolled into 1,000 scattered site homes that we owned, and also managed a portfolio for others throughout the Northeast Ohio segment. And so there were a lot of, it was a very fruitful business. The challenges were that it was just riddled with so many challenges. And we were an SFR, scattered site, and it just was so unpopular then. And if you use that term today, it's like the hottest term on the market. It's like, give me some build for rents, or give me some single family residential portfolios. So it's funny how, markets cycle a little bit, but needless to say, so we sold that business in 2015, and we're really proud of that exit. And the purpose of that exit was to kind of reestablish and set back to zero kind of standards and operations. And so we had rolled out and began Smartland in 13 with the concept of, hey, this whole business could be way more efficient. And it was, there were so many administrative hurdles and there were so many administrative costs and the inefficiency of the non-standardized product. And so we wanted to bring it kind of all in one package and also make it investor friendly, because throughout the years, coming out of that scattered site residential world, there wasn't a lot of love. And so we had to do a lot of everything on our own with our own capacity. And slowly but surely, right around, I think, 14, we purchased our first multifamily property. And so we always try to kind of test the waters and do our test product on our, kind of with our own money before we would offer it up or offer a solution to somebody. And with that being said, slowly our business has grown. Now again, we're going to be approaching 1,500 doors, primarily. I would say 90% of our, or 95% of our business overwhelmingly in multifamily. And today we're located in two states. We're in Ohio and Florida. We have properties throughout Cleveland, Canton, Akron, coming up in Akron that we're purchasing 251 units. In Columbus, Ohio, right in Intel's backyard. We're really proud of that purchase. In Canton, Ohio, we're right next door to the NFL Hall of Fame, the only one in the country. So we're also really proud of that purchase. And they're doing a massive capital infusion. So that's kind of been our, and then in Florida and South Florida, and my partner's background, Vadim, is in IT. And so we've tried to be a technology focused, technology first organization. And so that all gets back to kind of that historical point of, how do we make it better? How do we make it standardized? How do you make it one, friendly ecosystem that's good for residents and also investor focused?
I love it. Yeah, great summary. So there are a few pieces of that I want to dive into a little bit deeper. First off, you bought the first single family property in 2008. You grew that portfolio to over 1,000 homes in the greater Northeast Ohio market. When you exited that business in 2015, what were you selling? Were you selling the property management business? Were you selling the portfolio? Did you own everything that you were managing, or were you also third party managing? I'm just sort of curious about that business.
Yeah, great question. So all of the above. So we sold the property management business. A portion of it was properties that we had owned and divested with it, and a portion was a third property management that we did for others. And part of it was that being kind of pickle in the middle for others was very difficult. And this uniqueness with the scattered site, it's difficult. It's very profitable, but there's so many unique components to every single home that you need to kind of rattle it back in. You have to put your hands on it and make it all uniform and then go after it, type of thing. So, once we were able to kind of reposition that after that exit, that was really the main catalyst to real success. Well, not really, I don't want to call it success. I would call it like more freedom within the calendar, right?
Yeah. So help me to understand then, because it sounded like you started at least what is now Smartland back in 2013. Smartland's your company as it is today. You started that in 2013. You exited the other business in 2015. Like, help me to understand sort of the thought process and how that the mechanics around that transition. Why not just continue to build off of the existing business and create what you wanted in Smartland out of the previous business? What was necessary about the exit? Was it just a cash infusion that allowed you to go and execute on your vision for Smartland? Or help me to understand that a little bit.
I think there was definitely two sides to this decision. So number one, it was so the challenge is that we saw, 5 years into the business, we saw that the main hurdles was this uniqueness that you found everywhere. Every time you show up to the property, the simplest thing that you could digest, right? So like you show up at the property, or maintenance shows up at the property, and every time that they show up, there's a new faucet. And every time the first step is, I'm going to go look at the faucet, And then after I look at the faucet, I'm going to get back in the car. I'm going to go drive to Home Depot. I'm going to stand there for an hour and a half. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to realize, oh man, you know what? That faucet, I almost got it, but I just missed one other thing. And so there was just this incredible inefficiency that you could just not maneuver through because third party managing for others, you find yourself as pickle in the middle. So a lot of people build a lot of emotions around single family, and a lot of it is centered around mom and pop, and that's why it's so fragmented. And the largest single family property owners are the mom and pop business still today, and so it's such a fragmented business. And so being that it's so fragmented, even though we were able to do it maybe at a better scale or some minor vision of scale, I would say the number one hurdle is this, getting also over this emotional component. So when we set out, it's not only getting through the costs prohibitive moments, because right, like at turnover, sometimes you show up at a house and you have like 6 rooms with 6 different colors. Like there's no way. And then you have to explain as a third party manager to the owner, right, who this is their like self-directed IRA investment, let's say, right? This is a big portion of that, or this is or an adventure that they took, or this is something that is a nest egg to them, and they're very keen on costs, and they don't feel that this is a business transaction as much because they can't get themselves between ownership, self, my property, and this is just a business transaction type of mindset. And so what we did was we tried to disconnect this emotional component and just reconnect the investor that this is a business transaction, and it's in everybody's best interest to make it uniform, to make it standard. The turnover costs will, yes, we'll have this one time high exposure, but then moving forward, every single time we've mitigated so many issues and so many costs and so many hours and so many people. And so yes, so part of it was that, hey, it was so heavy because we're constantly in this battle of satisfying this emotional component of the business. And so as soon as we were able to eliminate that and just also explain to incoming, let's say, investors who now participate in much larger deals, hey, we run this as a business operation. Yes, there's an emotional component to it. However, we have to look at it very pragmatically as business first. So is this the best decision for the business, or are we using our emotions here? And so that was really critical. And so this location was necessary in order to grow what Smartland is, because our whole goal was that we would have an absolute uniform environment as much as we can control that, whether it's paint colors, light fixtures, water fixtures, toilet fixtures.
Sure.
And we're also properly capitalizing every project. So, homeowners come in and they think that everything is just, everything's in great shape, or, investors of single family homes, they may consider that item in perfect shape, whereas their resident doesn't feel that way. Right. And being in the middle of that is very complex, because at the end of the day, it's your reputation. It's not their reputation on the line. And so managing those expectations on two sides of the equation are very difficult when you don't have full and utter control of that environment. And I think that's really what was the catalyst.
Understood. Okay. So when you sold that business, you sold the property management side as well as the holdings of that business, because you did hold your own assets, correct?
Yes, some of that was included with it. And then so we had, for full disclosure, we were on a non-compete for the property management. So essentially we couldn't manage other people's assets. However, we're allowed to self-manage our own assets.
Got it. Understood. And so you started Smartland with the intent of sort of having a unified sort of conveyor belt approach, more business structure, corporate type identity, as well as being heavily focused on technology. Now, I've heard other companies and other operators tout how they're, technology focused, and then their technology simply is an investor portal. Like, what really is going on behind the scenes with Smartland that makes you guys technology focused?
Yeah, so awesome. I love this question because, like really I know my partner Vadim is somewhere sitting listening. He's like, yeah, he loves this. So I always say he is like, I'm the guy. If you take one of those technology curves, and you're like early adopter, middle adopter, late adopter, I'm
Yeah,
somewhere in the middle to late. Like
yeah,
I suck at texting, but Vadim, my
sure.
partner, he's like the guy. He's got the latest widget. He's going to the tech conferences. He's going to the property tech conferences. He's in the mix,
Got
right?
it.
And so our office in the mix, I always say. And what I mean by that is, so we use the prop tech products like, we're powered by AppFolio. We sit on G Suite. We're a cloud-based product. We do have the investor portal. We have the document handling portal and your own box. That's cool. That's been going on now for like, this is like decade old technology we're talking about, right? Like a lot of people are getting hip to it because this prop tech stuff is becoming more mainstream, but we were on the forefront of, when the SEC changed the rules and opened up the crowdfunding. We were sitting around already, figuring out, hey, how do we set up our own portals, and can we do this with our own developers internally, and so forth and so on. And then, and so we've met those hurdles on how to exchange and do ACH and what the legal chain of custody looks like. And so yes, so all that exists. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to lie, some of our portal is powered by us and some of our portal is white box. And so it has to do with, over the years as things progress, we also need to add layers of our technology. And so equally, so some of it is, again, I would say equal powered. However, some of the cool stuff that we're doing is on the tech side, being tech forward, is we are doing the USB and the Alexas, and we also have an app that's like just, in beta mode, that's tied to your Alexa, where you can order your Alexa to set up a maintenance command, to set up a maintenance work order for you in your unit. They'll hit our system. And then we have AI that does the lead flow generation for leasing and sets the appointments and does the, what do they call it? Native texting. And so we do all of those fun things, and we use the digital locks, and we use the Wi-Fi microwaves and the Wi-Fi coffee makers. So we're doing that stuff. But the other things that we're really proud of, that we have a prop tech product that we've partnered with, like with Rhino Insurance, that you probably heard of that on your show. And so we work with them direct. They underwrite our leases now. And so we have a 6, 12, 24-month lease underwriting on every new incoming resident. And so why that's important, at least in our world, is because we're acquiring buildings with existing residents. So we're getting existing profiles that didn't necessarily meet or go through our vetting process when we've acquired them.
Hey, so Steve, for those that aren't familiar with Rhino, if you could just give us just a brief synopsis of what that's all about.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for putting a pause on me. So I get really excited about the tech stuff, if you can't tell. So Rhino is a property technology solution specifically designed. It's an insurance product that insures the resident lease. And so this is not insurance for the building. This is not insurance for like tenant. There's a tenant liability. This is not a landlord liability policy.
This
This
is
is not a
the
secondary
this is
rider.
insurance against the lease
This is
payment.
insuring the lease and the leasee,
Yeah.
paid for by them. And so we get a differentiator in the marketplace because using this technology, we're marketing our product with a zero deposit move-in fee, because we're getting an insurance on the lease, and then those lease insurance timelines, you can insure a lease between 6 months, 12 months, 24-month term leases. They're fairly inexpensive, $7, $12 a month, paid for by the resident. And so what happens is that it gives us a buffer, essentially, right? So when a new incoming resident, so we got a new market rate a unit that we've renovated because we're a heavy value add operator. So a new incoming resident, they go through our screening process. They meet all of our same hurdles and guidelines. This is not to mitigate or to remove screening processes. This is to underwrite and ensure the screening process, essentially. And so if there's a default, let's say the resident fails to pay 1 month's rent, right? We have a web portal that our administrative team can access and do a claim against their insurance for that 1 month lease,
Mm,
for that 1 month default. And
hmm.
we'll get a direct ACH from Rhino to pay for the month lease of to pay for that month's lease.
And what does Rhino do on the front end to underwrite the tenant?
So we have a prescribed proprietary relationship with Rhino.
Mm,
So they have an underwriting proprietary model that they do and use. However, we also have a layer that we've asked them to add in for our scrutiny, and it's a level higher than a little bit than what their benchmark was set at. And so basically they go ahead and they'll do the credentialing essentially, right? They'll do the background check. So before we would do it in house, we would
got
do
it.
it internally. So we'd have to have somebody on payroll or multiple people on payroll doing this intake of, vetting, basically putting their stamp, right? Rubber stamping applicants.
All
And
right.
so we've tried to eliminate that entirely. We put in an automated underwriting process. And so now, with that powered by their insurance, we're able to bring in qualified residents and disqualify unqualified residents much quicker.
And is
And
this all integrated inside of AppFolio, or you have to do a third-party integration, or is this sort of standalone app that you run through Rhino? How does that work?
we have some of our own internal AI working on that. It links the two worlds. So as applications come in, we've written a program internally that exchanges information. So we've
Got it.
automated it internally, but there is no market product that's readily available out of the box that you can get that will do that for you.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right, sorry to get you off track on that. I was
No,
just
no, no,
wanting to
no,
get some clarity on the Rhino insurance piece. Okay, any other like major technological pieces of your business that are noteworthy that we could share with the listeners?
Yeah, we have a new a la carte furniture model that you can purchase. We have an a la carte tech package, just like you go to the dealership and you can buy a car, your standard, your LE, your LX. So you'll have that option with all leases, new residential leases, where uh, a menu of products that they can get for their residents, everything from couches, beds, smart tech products. And then also we have a new medical a la carte product rolling out that we can't talk about yet. But we're going to be focusing a lot on health and wellness here in the future. And so it will be kind of a product that we roll out here in the
I'm
coming
I'm
years.
curious about the options piece where the sort of the a la carte furniture and finishes, fixtures type piece to your business. You're focused on mainly C class value add deals. Is that a fair and accurate, broad stroke focus of your business?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And do you see demand for that in that asset class, that tenant base in the C class workforce housing type tenant base for that type of service?
Yeah, so there is a demand, and so we're a big proponent of being okay as being the market differentiator in the sense of number one, we firmly believe that we're bringing an asset to each individual submarket that is different in the sense of in and around us in our competition, they give you kind of the status quo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're outdated, they're not modernized, and so we're underwriting to these conditions and we're buying to these conditions in and around us. And so ultimately, we're not buying, 1,000 unit complex, and we're not looking for 1,000 residents that want to buy into this slightly better modern lifestyle within that immediate submarket. We're only talking about 150, 250 people at a time. And so without oversaturating a single marketplace, we're able to do it within sub secondary and tertiary marketplaces, and managers and young folks and equally, all age groups are seeking a slightly better, living condition. And some folks want to be immediately within that submarket and they're not offered the opportunity for a better asset to live in. And so really, we see plenty of absorption and a lot of demand, specifically more and more from busy professional folks, lower tier, middle tier managers, upper tier managers. And what we're seeing, actually, interestingly enough, is that we're seeing a lot of folks that are willing to be more transient, right? So not transient in the sense of like moving around more. I meant willing to travel farther for work, or commuters, longer commuters. I should use that term. So, we're seeing residents coming in from up to 40 miles away, willing to, looking for a better opportunity at a cost-effective rate. We're not at the highest price point, right? So we're not like the most expensive product. And typically we're coming in and we're trying to buy the lowest rent product in the market, and we're just moving it back up to market. And however, this purchase of the heavy value add that we do, we have enough delta to infuse it with all these additional amenities, because we're coming in with this big cash bag right away, dropping it into the building against our competition, who again, they may be able to do it, but a lot of operators, you know yourself, David, a lot of operators, they're not doing a very heavy value add. And the guys that are, it's a limited landscape of them. And then, status quo is carpets, paint, a little bit of signage, right? And so we're giving a little bit more than, way more than status quo. And people want that. It's resonating with the community, and then the community leaders, they're loving it, right? So we're literally changing the face of a community. And, people say it, it's very cliche, like, we're brightening people's lives. But listen, I've been stopped personally. I've been stopped personally in these buildings by residents that have lived there for over 2 decades in some cases. And they have given me the absolute warmest stories about it is a brighter place. The parking lots are not embarrassing. They invite their friends to visit them. They have technology in the lobbies. They have technology that they can access and get appropriate maintenance. We want to give, we would just simply look, we're not inventing anything. We're just offering all the same modernizations that anybody else would want and has, just within that submarket.
All right, so this is a perfect place for us to transition and talk about more of like a case study. You're in the process of taking down this 251 unit deal in Akron, Ohio, a heavy value add C-class deal. So if you can, just give us a broad overview of the deal itself, and then we can talk about some of the details.
Yeah, David, thank you so much. So yes, we are excited to be taking down 251 units in Akron, Ohio. It's a heavy value add, so it lines right up with our profile as an owner operator. And so this property, it's professionally managed. So, we're not buying it from a mismanaged sense point of view, but what we are buying is a value. And what I mean by that is that, so the operator in this case is very well skilled. However, going into the pandemic, they were heavily overloaded with students in the building. Normally they operated as market rate rent. And then we all know what happened in the pandemic, kind of wiped out a good portion of those students off of campuses. And so they've been having a tough time clawing back through it. They know that they have an impending modernization they need to do. And unlike, us as a heavy value add operator, they're an operator who, I like to say, they'll squeeze it to the end, right? So they don't necessarily, it's not that they don't have the capacity, like financially, to do it. They just don't have the capacity, like from an internal perspective, or like the desire to do it. It's just not what they do as an operator, to do these heavy capital expenditures. They kind of lead it as far as they can go, and then it's a generational sale. And so we were lucky enough to buy this asset about $700,000 below their high asking price. And so we bought that by virtue of just being the most aggressive buyer. We put $250,000 hard, and no contingencies. I said the product is great. It's 2 towers, very sturdy, beautiful masonry concrete construction. It's located right on the University of Akron's campus. But really what it needs primarily is this $6 million capital infusion. So we're going to go in, we're going to modernize, we're going to do a full stainless steel package, hard surfaces. We're going to do the new LVT flooring. We're going to do the new kitchen packages. So it's going to get the new tech package inside of it, the USB and the Alexa and the smart TV and the digital lock. and so forth and so on. And then we'll do a series of other value add components to the building itself. So everything like we talked about, using some of those tech stuff, to underwrite, to protect the leases, protect the investors, protect the investment, but also other tech stuff like, we self manage and install the entire Wi-Fi internet system.
Mm.
So instead of like getting a rebate from AT&T, we will install all of our own internet hardware, and we sell it to the residents at, three distinct package levels, $35 to $45 a month. And so we're able to drive a lot of additional revenue by doing that. And by making, a $70,000 or $80,000 capital infusion, we're seeing a $400,000 or $500,000 kind of return on investment and small, value add techie stuff that we're doing. And then other things like, pay by phone laundry services, where they're able to use just an app and by cell signal activate the laundry services. And so rather than getting, a coupon from the laundry management companies, we'll take back and we'll take ownership of the laundry systems and increase NOI that way. And so we're really excited about this opportunity because it's right in line with exactly what we do. It's also centered right in Akron, Ohio. There's a lot of growth immediately, what I call in the immediate medical economy next door. So Summa Health is their largest medical employer next door. They're doing like a $600 million multi-phased expansion of their health system. This is an 8-minute walking. So it's like 4/10 of a mile to Summa's front door. So we're going to be able to not only, attract nurses or medical professionals or medical staff and medical administration, but we have a D1 University of Akron on the far north, within walking distance, and we're on the farther end. So we do have an opportunity to attract, graduate students. I surveyed folks coming out of the building who were predominantly graduate students, and I had 3 resounding pieces of feedback. Number one was service at this building is excellent. We love the service. It's absolutely great. The units are outdated, and we have outdated common areas. So it was like a resounding similar feedback. And so we're not looking for students. Our goal is for market rate rent here. The rents are way below market. They're about 30% below market now. And so we're a value buyer. We're looking to buy the asset that has the lowest rents in the area, right? And so that's what builds the value. And then, yes, the returns are great, right? Everybody's going to get 2x on equity, but that is like one benefit because you're already making the money, right? Most folks that work with us, it's for accredited investors only, so it's a 506c. And so they have the income at this time, right? We're defining how to stretch the dollar, how to protect the dollar, right? So you're going to make the 2x multiple, right? You're betting on us as an operator, as your jockey, right? There's a lot of guys that are doing this in the marketplace. It's just believing that, hey, we're also great at it. And I do put my trust on this jockey, Smartland. I think that they can do a good job. We believe in the product and the underwriting. But at the end of the day, the beauty really comes in, not bonus depreciation. That's like a whole separate conversation. That's like a cherry on top if it happens. And typically we'll hold off until a refinance to do like a cost seg on a property. And we can talk about cost seg if the panel isn't familiar with it. But coming in with a $6 million kitty for capital expenditure, the investors get paper losses, right, against that investment because we're doing this massive capital expenditure. So in the first 4 years, right, and we'll keep it simple, and this is not an exact representation. Anything that I said is not forward-looking.
Sure.
And all of those disclaimers, but you're talking about on a $100,000 investment in year one, almost a $40,000 paper loss, right? Or in year two, a $45,000 paper loss. And so that's not counting, yes, and you'll receive some gains. However, even against those gains, you'll have a substantial paper. And when I say paper loss, listen, if you're a busy professional, and I have been in that seat and I left that world and I met the real estate world. And so if you're a busy professional, and whether you're, in finance or medical or legal or finance, whatever it is, any industry, you need some way to offset some of that income. So yes, this is a great investment. If you're making an alternative investment vehicle investment, real estate's awesome. I love the levers. I'm not a big stock guy. I don't have the stomach for it. Like I'm just not a better like that. I just can't bet because I can't get in that boardroom and say, hey, look, things are really bad. Let's open up the gates to Section 8. We have to just make sure we have heads and beds. I have no, you know what I mean? And so I see David smiling because he knows exactly what I'm talking about with this perspective. And so this is like the most critical part. So at this point, it's not really like, hey, we're all having the conversation because we figured out how to earn the income, right? Like at this point, we're having the conversation like, yes, we're building more wealth. Awesome, awesome. However, how are we also protecting more of it as you earn it, right? So like this is what's affording you this ability to invest. And so, yeah, and there are other levers, but I think really there's not enough conversation about what a heavy value add operator does for the investor in regards to, what a depreciation paper loss could look like. And we're not measuring those returns against our IRRs, right? In our underwriting. So that's like all
Right.
this is just bonus, bonus, bonus.
And then I wanted to touch real quick in the time that we have left, just on the debt piece. We're recording this sort of mid-October, early October,
Yeah.
mid-October. I mean, the debt environment is in turmoil at this point. What did that look like for you? How did you structure the debt? And you're in the middle of raising for this deal, right? You haven't closed on it yet?
Yeah, so we're in the middle of raising. We did already lock in our debt as of September 21st, and we got
Okay.
awesome debt. We're really proud of this because, to your point, I felt like just a second ago, if you've ever seen that movie with Jim Carrey where um, J- uh, Jack and Jill or something like that, where he's the correspondent, he's like they make him like the head of like a PR, and he has got to go on the news channel, and they're like, hey, Jack, how you doing today? Did you know that your CEO just boarded a plane and liquidated, and then their stock is plummeting. So that was very reminiscent of that moment. But so yeah, so number one, we were birthed out of 2008, right? So like we came out of really tough times. Like that's where we started. Number one. Number two, going into the pandemic, everybody was screaming the sky was falling going into the pandemic, right? With interest rates. So we're underwriting and doing downturn analysis walking into the pandemic. And then everybody quickly forgot, hey, overnight deposits and overnight exchanges, that overnight system got really kind of in turmoil. Cash was being infused, thrown around, and then all of a sudden zeros and 0% interest, and the market kicked back up. And so it changed, right? And even in Q1 this year, it was way different from debt. And so we just went out to the markets. And I was just on the phone with an appraiser actually, just right before this. And so we were just out in the debt markets. And so we were able to secure an 80-20 bridge loan to cost loan, right? And we locked in at 5.25, we locked in 13.4. So the larger segment of our debt is locked in at 5.25, and the 5 million that we're using for capital, or it's a 12 million locked in at 5.25, and the 5 million that we're using for capital expenditures is going to be at a SOFR reconsidered every 30 plus zero. So we got a really good rate, and so we think that our effective rate is going to be at about a 6. And right now, I know this is unheard of because there's not an 80-20 bridge out there at all for the eyes to see anywhere. It's a desert of that product, and coming into this quarter, that product was fairly cyclically available pretty much across any debt provider. And so we were able to lock in this amazing rate. We did personal guarantee it. So we do believe heavily in the deal. We didn't have to do a rate cap buy down. However, we know that is something that's going on in the marketplace. We also know that, the standard operating procedure right now looks more like a 70-30 loan to cost or a 75-25 loan to cost. You're talking about, buying down rate caps with effective rates looking at more like 7.5. We're following kind of that Chatham Financial, some of those trajectories on their treasury trajectories. At the end of the day, I think we locked in a good 6% effective rate across the board here. And I think it's going to be one of the last times that we're going to get such a nice term, at least for the immediate future. And so we came in really strong and heavy and finishing out 22 really well with that. And we were lucky enough to get the step because we're using the same debt lender that we just closed 153 units in Cleveland, Ohio on similar terms. So we're able to leverage kind of that quick relationship turnaround there. And so we're really, really grateful. But to this point, we purchased the property in the middle of COVID, or right at the onset of the pandemic. We closed it March or April of 2020. I just opened up that underwriting file again because we just got to stable on it. And we were underwriting, exits at a 6 cap and 6% interest back in 2020. And so we're underwriting Fir Hill at a 7.25 exit and a 7% interest rate. So, so we are at most being as conservative as we can, I think, with this marketplace. And I think we were just kind of just able to.
And what's your projected hold period on that?
It's going to be 3 to 5.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, it sounds like incredible debt terms, and that 5.25 is locked in for 5.
It's locked in for 5 plus 1 plus 1.
Okay, great. Man,
And it's a 3-year IO, and then 2-year on the back end with P&I, and then a plus 1 if necessary.
interesting. Well, look, I've peppered you with a bunch of different questions. We've jumped all over the place. I appreciate you being able to and willing to handle in the way that you have. I want to start winding down here, but I got a few final questions for you. The first is, in a general sense, what do you see as the biggest challenge that you're going to be facing moving forward over the next 6 to 12 months?
Ultimately, because we're such a heavy value add lift, price on materials has been extremely volatile, and so we've been putting in some controls and some ways to tether that in. And so I think for us right now, it's not as much as I think we're comfortable with where we're at from a vision on what debt looks like and what our deals moving forward look like. And I think seller expectations are slowly coming to that as well. And I think our biggest challenge looks like materials right now.
Got it. What do you see as the biggest opportunity moving forward over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, opportunity strikes when markets get volatile. So coming out of 08, I think there's going to be substantial opportunity to pick up similar multifamily heavy value add coming off of generational ownership at a lower cost basis, but maybe yet at a higher interest rate. And so that's okay too, because as long as we can offset that cost basis, we can deal with the interest rates, right? And so I think as the market kind of gets a little bit tempered towards that, and as we get a little bit more, I think, as it gets a little bit colder out there, not from the sense of the winter is coming, but
right,
financial winter somewhat. And so I think as that happens, not only are we going to get more downward pressure on renters and force renters to stay renters longer. And, again, this isn't necessarily our agenda, however, just following through what the market is showing itself. And obviously there's a push on inflation, which is causing, an uptick in rental prices. However, you still, I think, need to be very stringent on heavy value add operators, simply because you need to build the value. You can't really rely on that status quo. Hey, market's going up, 0% interest, and rents are climbing. I think there's going to be a little bit of a drag back. However, sitting in the middle, kind of in the middle of the country, we don't see those hot. And we mentioned earlier, we do business out of South Florida. The numbers there are significantly different on cost per foot. And so, being heavily more vested in the Midwest, we've never seen such large movement. So really, I think we caught up to where we were headed and where we should have been. And then I think now it's just kind of normalizing. And now we're going to see, hey, at this point, it's going to be an operator's game, right? So like, you're going to need to be either, I think really it's a chess game of who's going to have not the best amenities, but also I think the best customer service, but also offer the best modernized facilities, but ultimately just give you a feeling of home, right? Because I think that moving forward also as the generations and the younger generations, there's a lot less of this willingness or need or desire maybe of being a homeowner right away, right? So there's this, so amongst all the downward pressure with all the added layers of expenses, whether it's cell phones, insurance, cars, gas, food, whatever social stuff exists, then you have housing, and housing isn't getting any lighter. We're still faced with the same, with the same deficiencies in how many house stores we have, right? And so we're still behind in that world. We're still behind in housing in a lot of markets. But I think the Midwest will maintain steady Eddie. And I think that's what we love about the Midwest is that you can still seek out a good deal from a multi-generational owner, infuse it with the right amount of capital, put the right team in place, and we can build the value and we can have it for a long time coming still because nobody around us is doing it. I mean, we're the only modern building. And so yeah, that's
Love
the
it. Love it. Well, that's a great note to end on. This has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed hearing about your background, how Smartland came to be with you and your partner, how you guys have grown it and your focus today, and some of the unique pieces of your business that you're implementing from a technology standpoint and a deep value add standpoint, and sort of your outlook on the market moving forward. Steve, what's the best way for our listeners to learn more about you and what you have going on?
So you can visit us at smartland.com. We have a lot of information there. We also have active investment offerings. And you can text me, call me, 305-209-6428. Um, I'm I'm open. We're an open book and we welcome any type of questions and we invite all of the investors to come and join us.
Great. Love it. We'll have links to those in the show notes. So if you've enjoyed our conversation with Steve today, go down to the show notes, click on one of those links, and connect with Steve. Again, thank you for coming on, sharing
Oh,
your journey with us, and I look forward to staying in touch down the road.
David, thank you so much. Awesome, man. Thank you.